let's go to our next get. Oh, damn it! I had that thing up. I didn't realize it was up. Arnaud, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today? You doing all right?
I'm doing fine, Jamal. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for joining me. Arnaud Develay, he's an author, political analyst, and international lawyer specializing in international criminal law. His latest book, Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of American Political Consensus. Thank you for joining me on short notice. I saw something that piqued my interest, and I definitely want to get your take on it because it spells what I consider to be disaster. So I don't know if people remember this. I think this was last year, actually, when
August.
Joe Biden was talking about hitting, when Joe Biden was effectively talking about allowing Ukraine to do long range strikes. Putin comes out and says, this right here. Where is it? There we are. He says this. And it got a huge amount of publicity, and not just publicity, it on some level was expected to have stayed Joe Biden's hand for a while, for several months after. But this is the commentary that he made. And
Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом...
Now, I'm going to summarize this because obviously it's not in English for the audience. But what he's effectively saying here is, look, if you guys are going to allow long-range strikes into Russia, you can only do this if the US or if European countries allow it, meaning Ukraine can't do it without European hands on it, which means it's a direct intrusion into the war by Ukraine. By Western countries, whether it's Germany, France, UK, or for that matter, America. At that point, Joe Biden freaked out. He backed away. Starmer was still trying to get Joe Biden to effectively use long-range strikes. Joe Biden wouldn't do it, and he waited several months before Joe Biden effectively allowed it. All right, fast forward to Merz of Germany, who just got the job of all things, coming out and saying what seems to be something that they have already decided upon, even though Donald Trump said he's considering and thinking about it. All right. So what he is effectively saying is, look, we've made the decision. Oh, damn it. I didn't show the video. We've made the decision to allow long-range strikes into Russia, and even said that Donald Trump was effectively included in this decision. Now, this has been reported all over the place, including The Guardian. Germany, Ukraine, and other allies scrap limits on long-range arms sent to Kiev. Considering that Putin has said this is somewhat of a red line and that this is effectively NATO entering the war because they can't fire these missiles and weapons without NATO hands being on these weapons, what is the talk in Russia right now?
Well, the talk in Russia is basically a repeat of what was said in August of last year.
Active war.
I guess, yes. So I guess we, taking into account the jet lag in terms of political life in DC, we may have to wait a few more hours and wait for an answer. So it might either be a rebuttal or silence or somewhat of a tacit endorsement of what Merz said. We'll find out. We'll know soon enough. But right now, that does not compute with that 2.5 hour phone conversation that Putin and Trump had, which seemed to somehow get Trump to get a better understanding of the situation and simultaneously throw Europeans into a fit So right now, this is only the first shoe to drop. It's par for the course that Mertz would say that, because they have to react. They somehow are losing control over the whole thing. And they're trying to goad Russia into somehow do something that could then be used to portray the Russian premier as someone who needs to be stopped, so to speak. Case in point is this swarming of drones of the Moscow regions for the last few days in unprecedented numbers, including what would appear to be an outright attempt to take down Putin's helicopter as he was visiting the Kursk region.
Yep.
Which had to be somehow dealt with evasionary maneuvers. So they're throwing the whole kitchen sink. In other words, they're just in panic. Anything goes. I read this morning that Ukraine is down to pretty much only 30% capacity of air defense. So Ukrainian skies are Russians now.
Yes.
And the Russians have been literally taking out weapons depot, command and control centers. I mean, all those things are not reported, but if you go to specific channels, it's unbelievable right now. It's So what's left to do if you're one of those European, what was the name of that Jim Jarmusch movie, Night Train? The Night Train compadres.
Yeah.
You're gonna be looking for some kind of outlandish escalation, equality jump in rhetoric. And so, so there goes the Taurus. The Taurus, had been up to yesterday the step too far. It was deemed and considered as the step too far in the categories of long-range missiles, in as far as being the only one, more so than the HIMAR and the Scouts and the Storm Shadows, capable of if it's actually being dropped at a certain distance, actually reach Moscow. What's actually worrying to me is that one could think, so there's two possibilities. If one recalls the intercepted recordings of German high command types exchanging on the opportunity of bombing the Kerch Bridge, this would require probably about a dozen of those missiles to do so. There's been a lot of reconnaissance flight by those Poseidon planes, in the area yesterday and the day before yesterday. Yes. We used to see those in Syria off the Mediterranean coast when they were about to strike, targets in Syria. So that's not a good sign. I would add to this that not unlike what we saw when the Iranians implemented True Promise 1 and 2, you send a first wave, you basically swarm the air defense system so as to incapacitate it to such a degree that when you decide to launch the more advanced second wave of projectiles, you're going to register a lot of hits. And to the extent this has happened over Moscow region, that could also be a source of great concerns. But obviously, right now, we're dealing with people that are completely unhinged in the West, and we are trying to force, a situation, create a situation out of thin air. It's very neocon-like, let's be honest here. You manufacture reality. This harkens back to a New York Times article that was published back in December 2004, when Aaron Susskind, the New York Times reporter, was quoting someone from the Bush Jr. administration, saying essentially, we are forging reality. We are an empire now. Yeah. And just when you guys are left trying to analyze and understand what it is we're doing, we've already moved on to the next sequence.
See, there's a rub, Arnaud. Reality asserts itself. Like, meaning you can do that for a period of time, but reality it asserts itself. It's not, you can come up with hard limits or come into contact with very hard limits. And fact of the matter is, this notion of trying to goad Moscow into a larger attack, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. I mean, just like the Ukraine war, right? I mean, this is them goading Russia into this notion of we're provoking a conflict, something that we have been generating going all the way back to the 90s with the fall of the Soviet Union. Okay, you got what you wanted. You found out the stove was hot. And I agree with you that it's neoconish, but I think there's something else going on. I think in their minds, they can't reconcile this idea that they lost. Like they just can't accept it. And so they get more and more desperate in the way that they're behaving. And so, yeah, now all of a sudden, okay, now we're willing to do these long range strikes into Moscow. Okay, you are belligerents directly. Moscow gave you a pass for the longest time in regards to your capitals and attacking internally to your countries. But you are now belligerents into this conflict, and you are fair game to hit like any other, just like Ukraine is being hit. I mean, I don't know how far Putin will go with this, but from my point of view, they were belligerents a long time ago.
Well, to be sure, I mean, he's shown a lot of restraint up to now,
Yes.
almost to a fault in a way, because a lot of people are, somewhat miffed as to, the restraint that Putin exhibits. But it may come to a point where he won't have any choice politically, internally, politically, to retaliate in kind, and that's where we are getting into uncharted territory, because, as you alluded to, the Russian doctrine right now is that if there is the use of long-range weapon like this on large urban centers, through the use of weapon which can only be put into action owing to US and NATO intelligence collecting of data and satellite integration, then Russia is perfectly justified under its own doctrine to basically retaliate in kind, and that means London, Paris, Berlin are fair game.
Not just justified, forced. They're forced. It's a nose under the camel's tent. Like, imagine for the moment if they put in NATO troops in Ukraine and Russia doesn't do anything. Okay, well, you've just shown that you can add troops without a Russian response. Okay, well, what if the same thing's true for them hitting Russian cities with long-range missiles? Okay, you've just shown that you can hit long-range cities without a response. I mean, it forces a response. But correct me if I'm wrong on this, though.
No, you're right. It's almost tantamount to those kind of torture techniques. You're trying to basically you're probing the pain level. How much pain can you take? And you're somehow upping the ante, hoping that there will be a breaking point that you can then justify by saying, "Aha, see, I told you all along this person is not, who you think he is, or what have you." And this is also a communication informational war. Don't forget about it. It's all about perception.
Right.
And so when you hear Oliver Stone was in town a few days ago giving a talk to young Russians, and he made a remark that really caught my attention when he said that back in the Cold War, the coldest days of the Cold War, at no point in time were the US ever referring to the Soviet Union by saying Khrushchev or Brezhnev. Whereas today, the Russian Federation it's Putin. So this really stresses this hysteria when it comes down to how this man is perceived in at the oligarchical level in the West. He's really the guy who foiled that well-led plan going back to the 1990s. Yep. This is what it all comes down to. Yep. It's one thing to have never gotten your hands onto the prize, but it's worse to them to have had it and to have allowed it to slip out of your grasp. This is what they really, really won't ever forgive him. And at this level, it's almost like a turf war, and it's a show of force and not losing face. And to the extent he picked up the gauntlet and he really very deftly managed to basically deceive them for many years. I mean, don't forget, he was supposed to be their enforcer. They selected him. And he played a perfect poker game for years and started peeling layer after layer until at some point he was in such position as to tell them, everything you've been doing on a unilateral fashion, taking out regime you don't like. This is that we're not going to see any thing like this anymore. We're not going to tolerate this anymore, and we certainly are not going to allow you to do to us what you've done to, countries that you've said yourself once every few years, for deterrence purpose, you can just, take a third world military and just kick it around against the wall to show people that you don't mess around. But now you're dealing with peer to peer. And that's where the danger is that in a lot of those national security types in the West, they're still thinking alongside the lines of third world militaries. We're not dealing with third world militaries here. We're dealing with arguably the strongest and the most trained and war-ready army in the world. But because owing to this Russophobia and this very deeply ingrained notion that the Russians are incapable of doing anything right, this notion that there's no toilet in Russia, that everybody is a drunkard, that so on and so all those tropes and cliches, even though they are not stated explicitly, although you can see a lot of them on the platforms. Are they bots or are they serious people? I don't know, but some of them are actually real people and not like insignificant people saying it. But this is actually the danger, is to underestimate the Russians, to think that today's Russia is comparable to some kind of illusion of what they might have had in their mind as to what Russia is supposed to be and supposed to remain as. It's not gonna be like that, and hence lies the danger right now, because they're trying to. It's like a game. They're playing this kind of game like there's no consequences to their act. And in a way, why should they think otherwise? Because the last 25 years, if you go back to Yugoslavia, they've been getting away literally with murder.
Yep.
I mean, I was reading an article a few days ago. I mean, I don't know if you recall that series of movie called Hostel. It's really like gore, gonzo gore.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It turns out, and it's actually now confirmed, that back in the 1990s, some big moneyed types of people would actually pay money to a big amount of money to go to Sarajevo and pick up a rifle and snipe civilians, and then go home. Would be like a weekend safari, and they would be back on Monday and resume looking at their stocks on a computer screen and making phone calls on the other side of the planet to make sure that such supply line is working according to plan. It's crazy. So this is where we are. This is when Putin said, 500 years of those cannibals, literally feeding off the entrails of the world is coming to an end. This is not really a superlative or some kind of off-the-cuff remark. In a way, it's grounded in reality.
It's true.
So we're this is what we're dealing with here. If you put aside, the flags and the protocols and the name of the principles, this is kind of this ideology, this kind of those kind of locust mindset. You come in and you just spread across the land.
That's kind of what I mean. Like it's the turn of the worm. Have you ever heard that saying? The turn of the worm.
Yeah.
It's like this notion that we've been able to do this for so long, and we've been able to knock down Iraq, Afghanistan, like you say, Yugoslavia. We've been able to take down Libya, Syria. We've been able to knock over all these countries. According to us, we won the Second World War. We won the First World War. We don't mention Vietnam, and so
Korea.
Korea, right? Like with China coming over the hill and kicking out MacArthur. But now we just got beat. and we can't reconcile it. We created a military organization for the last 50 years. And when that military organization was tested, it failed miserably in that test. And they can't reconcile it. It's like in Three Body, in Dark Forest, where they have this device that allows your brain to believe something, whether it's true or false. It's like you have a religious conviction for it. And that religious conviction comes in contest with reality. And they just can't reconcile it. That's what it seems like to me. Arnaud, I know you have to go, so I'm not going to keep you beyond the thing. Thank you for this. I really do appreciate it. And just for the audience, because I don't know if I gave you an intro like I was supposed to, Arnaud Develay, he's an author, political analyst, and international lawyer specializing in international criminal law. His book is called Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of American Political Consensus. Good friend of the show. Thank you for this, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jamal.
You be safe. Have a good one. All right. That is disturbing analysis by Arnaud. I think he's right. I don't think they're taking this. I think they haven't seen a modern war in Europe for so long that they've forgotten the reality of what it looks like. That's what I think. And I think Ukrainians being killed is not sufficient in order for it to be clear on a ground level. I also think very strongly that Europe is not necessarily recognizing this, but in the same way that Europeans are feeding and the US are feeding Ukraine to the Russian army, the US will do the exact same thing to Europe and feed Europe to the Russian military also. So be careful what you wish for in all of this. You may end up getting it. You may get it. And again, as I pointed out before, if you do this, you're fair game. People like myself would have called you fair game from the very beginning. Because from my point of view, this is chess logic, right? You attack the thing that's defending the thing that you actually want to attack. And if you are either producing weapons for, if you're defending, if you are firing missiles and killing my people in a war that you provoked, your capital's a fair game. Maybe if that was the thought early on, maybe they would realize that the seriousness that this war deserved. Up to this point, every action that has been taken that has been pragmatic to avoid a nuclear conflict, the line that Putin has walked to try to prevent an overreaction by NATO because he realized he's not dealing with rational actors. And so he himself has to be even more rational to deal with sociopaths. That all of it has been taken as weakness, meaning any notion of pragmatism has just been taken as weakness, or he's not being serious, or he'll flinch, as opposed to, okay, this guy's trying to be pragmatic and prevent the world from falling into fire. They don't seem to get it. Just like the guy on the street that keeps pushing you because he wants to fight. There is this thing sometimes with parents where they would, or teachers in classrooms that used to annoy the hell out of me, and it still does, that if two kids get into a fight, they don't go to the person who started it. They go to both, as if a person who is itching for a fight, that the other person can prevent a fight from the person that's itching for a fight. There's no way out of that box, right? You can't back away in many respects. You can't get out of it in many respects. Even if you're being a rational actor, even if you're trying to be pragmatic, none of that stuff necessarily gets you out of that conflict, which is why I hate this idea of I'm going to blame both people when one person may be the one that's responsible for it. Yeah, you may have a situation where both people are being irrational, but that's not always the